Welcome to Ruining Culinary. Last week, my most beloved assistant, Ruger, my darling dog and fur baby, passed away on the equinox in the middle of the night. But before he passed away, we harvested this beautiful rhubarb. So I want to make a wake cake to remember him by. I dedicate this episode to you, Ruger von Schmergerson, my most beloved best friend. We start with chopping up the rhubarb with some kitchen scissors. And chop that all up into a bowl. We got our oven preheating to 350. And we're back. We've chopped up the rhubarb into tiny pieces. Even though my dog helped me harvest this by standing near me and watching me pick it, I want to note that I would not feed it to him or any dog because rhubarb is poisonous to dogs. I'm using an adaptation of the apple cake I used to make for him, which he loved, and making it into little cupcakes. So I have my reusable paper towel here, bandana, hanky, whatever you want to call it. And I got a little bit of coconut oil, and I'm greasing the corners and the sides of all the cupcake pans. So I'm going to do that. There we go. Our pan is greased, and we get a little bit of all-purpose unbleached flour. Put a little, just a little dibby dowel in the bottom of each. Swish it around, twirl it around until all the sides and bottoms are coated. Do it over top of a bowl unless you want, you know, stuff all over your counter. If you've missed some, you can toss it back in. Yeah, good old Ruger, he was 13. He was a rescue dog that we got 11 years ago, and he was really pretty healthy until about a year ago when he started having horrible seizures, and we think it might have been a brain tumor. He was such a good boy. He had so much fun even up until pretty much late in the evening the last day. He always liked apple cake, so you know, we'll just make that. We'll make a people version. So we got our rhubarb and we'll make a rhubarb version of Ruger's favorite apple cake. 2 cups of flour there. And we're going to toss the rhubarb and the flour to evenly coat it so that it evenly distributes throughout the muffins. Half a teaspoon baking powder, half a teaspoon baking soda, cup of sugar, it's okay if your sugar has lumps in it. Just work out the lumps. It's like life. You gotta just work out the lumps of life. Stir that up. Then we want to take our mixture of 2 tablespoons coconut oil and 1 stick of butter. Oh yes, this is the restoration I'm working on. My pile of paint. I can scoot the pile of paint if not enough to get into the microwave. Oh, it's okay, it's sticking under. Oh no. Oh, well, I'm not going to use that palette for the rest. I'm just going to cover that up. Okay. 50 seconds. Okay. And we're back to the wet bowl. And we have 2 eggs. Why do you mix your dry and wet separately? Well, you know, makes it not clump. You want the wet ingredients. You know, it's kind of a lot of flour. I'm just gonna add in a 1/3 egg. Normally you'd only need 2, but I feel like, well, that's okay. Just pick it out. Our butter is ready, but first I'm gonna wash my hands. Yep, it's important to wash your hands every time after you crack an egg. All right, butter melted. It's kind of hot butter. You don't want to add it directly to the eggs. I'm gonna get a little bit. I'm gonna let that butter cool down for a little bit, like 1/4 cup of water. And we get our whisk or fork. Yeah, I know I've been grieving, so I haven't really done, well, I've done some dishes. Well, I mean, all the dishes were done yesterday, but they've come back. They're like ghosts. There we go. Add our eggs and our water. And add our coconut oil and butter. And mix that thoroughly. I want to add probably 1.5 teaspoons, 2 capfuls of vanilla. I always prefer to use real vanilla extract because imitation vanilla just isn't as good. Okay, we're just gonna add the wet to the dry. You can either use a fork or a spoon to gently fold this together. You can add a little spices if you want. I kind of like ginger. And a little bit of cloves. I can't get it open with the one hand. Just opening the cloves. There we go. Cloves. Cinnamon. There we go. And just fold that in. Now, if it's looking too soupy, you can add a little more flour, but I think that'll be about right. Now, one thing that I like to add to cakes sometimes, especially fruit cakes, is a little bit of chia seed, because it just kind of helps keep them moist. Don't go too crazy with it because they go a long way. Just a little, just a tablespoon. And I wasn't going to do this at first, but sometimes I like to add white chocolate chips. Oh, there goes my vanilla extract. That's okay. It's an offering to the spirit of Rhubarb. So white chocolate chips might be fun in a rhubarb cake. I'm just going to add a little 1/2 cup. Normally you would add the chocolate chips and toss them with the dry ingredients so they also evenly distribute throughout the cake. But that's okay if they're at the end. All right, go ahead and stir that up. All right, welcome back to Brewing Culinary. We just have one more ingredient to add to our rhubarb chia white chocolate chip cake. Is a little bit of maple syrup. We already put sugar in here and some spices, but I think the maple syrup will just be a nice little harvest flavor adding touch to that. Okay, we got that all mixed up. We have our greased and floured cupcake, extra large, super size muffin tins here. You know, you just spoon a little into each. trying to put an equal amount in each so they will rise. So you don't want to fill them all the way up to the edge, just leave a little bit of a gap at the top because they will rise. You don't want them to go too far off the top of the pan or else they'll stick to the top of the pan and you'll have to scrape it off. There we go. All right, just fill all those up. Okay, we have all our muffin tins full. We've kind of cleaned up the edges there. And I had a little extra, so I just put it in another cake pan. I'm gonna do probably about 5 minutes on the bottom rack, just so the top doesn't burn, and then I'm gonna switch them to the top rack. Okay, just pop those in there at 350 for 5 minutes, then move them to the top rack and cook them about 15 more minutes. Okay, it's time to move them to the top rack without dropping them. Turn it around so the opposite side is facing so that it's evenly distributed. One is not enough, you need two. And 2 hands. There we go. In for another 15 minutes. Well, we took the cupcakes out of the oven and cooled them for an hour, and I've gathered these beautiful sunflowers from the sunny spot that Rhubarb liked to lay in, and I've pre-poked little holes, and I just put them in there. I want to make sure that you're doing this with edible flowers. Just kind of put them in there. And I got some mint leaves from the garden. This is a rose from the memorial bouquet that Jeff and Melissa sent us. Their dog Audio was Ruger's best friend. And on that last day, Ruger and I didn't know that it would be our last day, and he usually works as my studio assistant, and he was helping me write this little tune about the equinox, and it only has one verse, but I'll sing it because it's the last song we wrote together. Take the light of this equal day, let it drift down deep into your soul. Save it for that waking sleep, and that heaven you will surely find. And if we harvest now, we might get through the winter, we might get through the winter and the freezing times. And if we harvest now, we might get through the winter, we might get through the winter and its silent snow, and its silent snow. To heaven you will go, to heaven you will go, and you will live forever in my heart, Ruger. Thank you for being my dog. Thank you for cooking with me. Thank you for singing with me, and may you be remembered always. And most of all, Ruger, thanks for ruining culinary with me.